Hello and welcome to the Saturday Warhammer, mostly Warhammer, War Room stream. My guest today is RybackStun, who is not only a very cool person online who does lots of neat things, but also a good friend of mine in real life. I was trying to think, we've probably known each other for like 10 years now?
It's more than that.
Is it more than that?
It's gotta be. I think I've known you longer than I've known my wife.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we have a first question, and it's a good one because they know my opinion. Oh, RybackStun, what's your opinion on beaky helmets?
I love beaky helmets. They are genuinely my favorite helmet design. Much like Scott here, I actually don't like unhelmeted faces. But ever since the very first time that I built and played Warhammer, I've always loved the beaky helmet because it's strange, but it's really cool looking at the same time if you know what you're doing with it.
That's fair. So. It is definitely strange. And yeah, and the lore is that it's packed with extra sensors, right?
Yeah.
Like, what, you would need that? All right, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I guess it's all fine. Yeah, so today we're gonna go through. We're gonna talk about some of the new Slaaneshi stuff, which we've mentioned before, but now it's actually available for pre-order. We can talk about how much everything costs. I was gonna say you can make guesses, and then we could reveal what the actual cost was. I did it myself when I was looking up the things, and I was pretty spot on. The new giant feature model, the Glutos or Scalion, it's actually $5 cheaper than I expected. So, but I was very, very close. Yeah, I thought it was $120, and it turned out only to be $115. I will say, well, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I ate breakfast. Somehow, still hungry. Did a couple of random things this morning. My wife and I get into the habit of watching random stuff for food when we eat food. So this morning we watched, I don't know if you know the channel Cinema Wins.
No.
But basically, do you know what Cinema Sins is?
Yes.
Okay.
I know of it.
Cinema Sins is the bad version of this. Cinema Wins is the great version of this because every movie is somebody's favorite. And that's the whole idea of Cinema Wins is that you, it's better to like things because liking things is fun. That's not to say that you have to throw problems away and ignore obvious issues. Sure. You can like things. So the two ones that we watch, because we've been on a kick of watching these videos, is everything great about The Last Jedi and then everything great about Rise of Skywalker. The guy who does these videos, he's a cinematographer himself, so he knows a lot of different things about movies. We're not talking like Oscar caliber, like he knows literally everything about everything, because there's people out there that know more than him, obviously. But he has a lot of cool comments about how cinematography is how the music goes, how acting is, directing, so on and so forth, that kind of thing. That's
cool. Yeah, and that's, I mean, incidentally, but that's the the thought process I go through when I do my reviews for Figures.com, is that I'll address if there's like an actual issue with a toy or a collectible, like it literally doesn't work or something. But at the end of the day, I'm typically never giving a bad review. I'm trying to find who is the right audience for this toy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. So it's interesting that you say about toy reviews. These guys right here, which are the DC Multiverse, McFarlane figures, are notoriously awful figures, at least in my experience. These are actually really amazing. And I'm very surprised that, I mean, I guess because they finally picked up a license that's worth, putting out there. But the DC stuff is just spectacular. Like you can see in the back, if I can move here, we've got some of the others, like non-Dark Knights. I'm buying it specifically because I want the Dark Knights.
Wait, let me hold on. I can make you bigger. There we go.
There we go. So this is the Dark Knight shelf. Eventually, once I build the other stuff, I'll have the whole thing here. But these are like the individual figures I bought. There's the Red Hood, your favorite character, with the Nightwing 2-pack, and the Flash that came with the Red Death 2-pack. And then other just random crap here, but that's different time, different day.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have any of the McFarlane DC toys yet, but I'm sure they'll do a Green Lantern at some point.
They do have
a regular one
as a single pack.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, everybody's fine. You'll hear the kids screaming in the background, but it's all good. Okay. Before we talk about excuse me. Before we talk about the new stuff that's out or pre-order for today, let's take a step back. Let's talk about. So when did you first hear about Warhammer in your entire life? And this can be 40K or fantasy. Whatever it was.
40K. Okay. I think my dad knew about it before I did, but he never really got into it specifically himself. He used to play Dungeons and Dragons in the military when he was in the Navy. There's this infamous story about he has this big dungeon where he purposely placed a second entrance to the dungeon, and his crewmates went into that, and it was a one-room thing where they go in, they look for the stuff, somebody hits a button, and it just killed them.
Wow.
My dad had. We lived in an apartment building in the valley, and one of the residents, his name is Tim, which I don't know if you know Tim Shapansky, but he plays Malifaux over there, or did play Malifaux at Emerald Knights for the longest time. He kind of had picked some stuff up, and on his way through the lobby, my dad saw it, and they had conversation about he knew what it was, so on and so forth. This was back in 3rd edition of Warhammer 40K.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad and we went out to the Games Workshop that was inside the Glendale Gallery at the time, and we looked around some stuff. That's where we met Shad for the first time. Somebody who we still to this day know, still to this day works for that company off and on, but now he's finally in the place where he deserves to be. Yeah. So that's my first exposure, and that first exposure included the original 3rd edition starter, which was Space Marines and Dark Eldar, but specifically Black Templars, and that's why the Black Templars became the army that I ran. The only justice they've ever gotten throughout the years is that 3rd edition. But that's where I started. So I was 12 back then. I'm 32 now. Wow! So it's been about 20 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you've dabbled both, but you've dabbled in fantasy as well. Right.
Yes. I would say maybe 2 or 3 years after that, I picked up some of the starters, which I think at that time was High Elves and Orcs. But I became a pretty big fan of Bretonia, so I bought the Bretonia Battalion, built up its stuff, and played a game. I've never been as much into the fantasy aspect, even though sometimes I really, really try hard. Like, one of the things that I'll show today is some Age of Sigmar stuff that I've painted. And I wanted to get in right when Age of Sigmar happened, but it was just a lot of ups and downs. Real life interferes with my ability to do gaming a lot, and that's unfortunate, but soon that won't be as much of an issue, obviously, because gaming will become part of my real life. But yeah, I've played every single miniatures game that GW has ever put out. So I've played Epic, I've played Warmaster, I've played Battlefleet Gothic, I've played Necromunda, Mordheim, I played Blood Bowl, both digitally and in real life. Like, GW has been a big part of my life for a very long period of time, and while I don't agree with every decision that they make, nobody really does. Gorka Morka I played, although I think that was out of print by the time I played it. I don't remember all of these games, but I do remember enjoying everything that I've ever played. And there's certain games that I've stuck with, obviously 40K throughout the entire time. Blackstone Fortress, that one. Okay, so the newer stuff I haven't played as much.
Everybody gets a pass on the recent stuff.
But there's so much stuff that I've played and I've done that there's just a lot. But that was my 20 years ago. Ran into somebody in particular, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. And for 40K, you've played a fair number of armies over the years.
I have played Space Marines, 2 different types, obviously Black Templars and then regular Marines. I've played Imperial Guard, Tau, Tyranids, Orcs, Eldar, Dark Eldar, Necrons. I don't know if I said that already.
No, I was waiting.
The only army that I've never actually put models to the board, I might own models for them, but I think the only army I've never put models to the board are Chaos. Even though I'm a big Black Legion fan, I'm a big Thousand Suns fan. I have stuff, that I've gotten from the people, things that I've purchased myself. but I think that's the only army I've never actually played games with.
Wow. Yeah, because I was going to say maybe a shorter answer would be which armies haven't
I played? Yeah, exactly. So I've even played Sisters of Battle, which was fun.
Sure.
Back when they were called Witch Hunters.
Oh. Okay. Does anyone remember Dark Future by Games Workshop? I've never heard of that. Interesting. We'll have to look it up. So speaking of fantasy and Age of Sigmar, so this month technically is, well, sort of. I mean, Games Workshop they tried to have a release schedule, but obviously it got all screwed up and different things happened. But in theory, this month is Slaanesh month for Age of Sigmar, which, you know, a lot of people got really excited when we started to see these releases coming for Age of Sigmar, thinking, oh, they'll tie this into 40k also, and we'll get Slaanesh-related things in 40k, maybe even Chaos Space Marine stuff and Emperor's Children things. So far, that has not panned out. We'll see. Maybe it will, but so far it hasn't. But if you are into Age of Sigmar, there are some really beautiful Hedonites of Slaanesh miniatures that are coming out. So we can go through real quickly because there's a bunch of them. And in a lot of these, there's basically the typical thing. There are two different ways of building the kits depending on how you want to run your people. So these are the Myrmidesh Painbringers. And again, this is Games Workshop naming conventions. So some of them are better than others. And these are $60 a pack. But yeah, I mean, these people look really, really cool.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a little bit tempted, but so far I have managed to keep myself out. Like I said, I have a Well, actually, okay, so I have a Caradron Overlord's army. It's sizable enough that I can play for Age of Sigmar. I was reminded though, I do have some Slaanesh demons for 40k, which of course you can play in Age of Sigmar also. We'll see. Yeah, so these
we're doing it. We're slowly eroding him, chat.
I mean, that's what happens, right? So these are the Myrmidesh Painbringers. You can also build these, which are the Simbaresh Twin Souls. So these are a little bit more demonic. You can see in their faces. They've got like warped faces. Some of them have horns and goofy things like that. Of course, top right, there's always somebody with a top knot. Well, actually, a couple of them do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are same price for these, $60. I like the Slaanesh symbol on their breastplates. Those are cool.
Yeah.
There's some neat stuff going on with these models for sure. And then if you want just infantry that can shoot stuff, these are the Bliss Barb Archers. So these are just humans shooting arrows. And I don't know what that guy in the bottom right, he's got some sort of a cauldron with skulls in it. Yeah, or something. But that's kind of neat. Oh, thank you so much for the bits. Bits. We love bits. Buy them. Maybe. And I think, and some of these, it depending on the model kits, some of them are more visually gender inclusive. So these, you can see some of these are much more female presenting than others. So a nice mix of male and female models. With the Slaanesh stuff, sometimes you get into things that are more androgynous, or so it can either go androgynous or have very distinct sexual characteristics of both male and female. Here they've gone for these are. I mean, there's a lot of these are pretty androgynous, but you can see some are definitely more female or male presenting. The bases are too big. Interesting. Well, they do have a lot of decoration and rubble and stuff, but.
Yeah. One of the things that I did notice when they started making newer models outside of the Sigmarines is their bases. I think Age of Sigmar is a game that's designed to be built around 32mm bases and higher because they want it is and it isn't a lesser model count. Like you can play a Goblin army and have 1,000 models on the board.
Sure.
I mean, some people are insane, yes, but the idea, I think, is they want more elite styles because we've had that fantasy rank and file thing for years and years and years, and it's coming back with Warhammer: The Old World. So realistically, there's something everybody out there, something out there for everyone, and that's one of those things where I think this. The base sizes, while a little bit unwieldy and a little bit, because I mean, anybody that's played Warhammer 40k for the last 20 years. 25 millimeter bases is what basically everything was on, unless it were a Terminator or a bigger creature. But even recently, they've moved regular Marines and Primaris Marines up from 25 to 32, regular models and infantry styles for all of these different armies. I think even the Fire Slayers that I have are all on 32 millimeter bases. Every single Warhammer Underworlds model, unless it's bigger, is also 32 millimeters. So, except I think the skeletons might be smaller.
And that's interesting you note that, the whatever the old world is going to be again. But if that's more of a rank and file, like you said, that's really interesting that'll be the game of fielding like whole regiments of things versus this game that moving into more. That's cool. I just saw a video. I forget the name of the YouTube account, but it was about how to downsize your games, and it wasn't so much using fewer models. It was finding 3D sculpts of literally just smaller models of your games, so you could play the same games in miniature. So basically, it was like 10 millimeter scale. It wasn't Warhammer specifically. I think it was like Kings of War, but sort of the same idea. And it was like those ranked units, which was kind of cool. So these are just mortal archers, and then you can put them on the crazy Slaanesh creatures. These have gone through some interesting developments over the years. So these are Seekers, and I don't know, they're like dinosaurs usually. Sometimes they've got much more almost like whatchamacallit, like the snouts of like seahorses, kind of.
I was gonna say they kind of remind me of seahorses.
But I like these, and they've got some armor bits to them. They've got some inlaid stuff. They're pretty cool, and you can build them in two different ways. So these are the Bliss Barb Seekers with the archers on them, or you can make the Slick Blade Seekers, so they have the melee weapons on them. But they're neat. I don't have any of these for any of the games. Although I guess my Demons of Slaanesh Start Collecting has a few of these.
They should have something similar to that, if not the same thing.
Just the previous look on them. Oh, and then I should say that these are $65. Cool. So next on the list are now these we can talk about. So this is the Return of Slangors, and these are the Slangor Fiend Bloods, which have had they're interesting models. They're bestial, but they're also a little bit sexy.
As everything Slaanesh is.
Sure, they've got the stockings, which is an interesting choice for creatures like this. And this is another place where people are looking at what's happening in Age of Sigmar and saying, "Oh my God, could we possibly get these in 40K? Some more monstrous creatures for the Chaos Space Marines, or just Demons of Slaanesh in general." Which would be very cool. The Rocky, exactly. Rocky Horror Picture Show Slangors. I think these guys look really cool. These are $50. Obviously bigger models, but you only get a couple of them. Then you know him, you love him. It's Sigvald the Magnificent. Now that this guy is officially available for pre-order, a bunch of like really amazing painters who clearly get this stuff in advance from Games Workshop have been able to show off what they've been doing with this model. There was somebody on one of the groups I saw this morning who did this in a metallic purple armor, and it just looked absolutely amazing.
Nice.
And on the back, you can't tell from these pictures, but now that we have full turnarounds, so you can, if you look really closely around his, like up the very tops of his legs, you can see that the armor doesn't go. There's a gap essentially between his breastplate and his leg armor, and everyone was kind of wondering what that would look like. So on the back of the model, he's essentially just not wearing pants, and the armor on his legs is just strapped onto his bare legs, which looks really cool. But it's very interesting. You can definitely give it some interesting looks when you do the painting.
It's very Roman.
He is not wearing pants. Zardoz, look, I'm trying to keep myself from buying this army.
Do it.
But we'll see. This guy Sigvald here is $55, and he comes on this. And he comes on this really cool base. Somebody was also asking if you could mount this guy on a smaller base. And like I said, this painter who got the model early, he's like, no, there's no way. He's huge.
Yeah,
especially with that cape.
Can, on the actual site itself, you can see the base itself. It's actually, if I'm looking at this correctly, yeah, it's the whole. It's like a half moon there, or a moon crescent. That front part that you see, that's a whole melded like piece that you just put on the. I want to like a 50 millimeter base.
Is it? Yeah, it looks. Yeah, so like one of these where it's a whole terrain piece that exactly drops right down on the
Yep, you just plop that right there, which is good because sometimes that type of thing gives something more stability than you would have otherwise. So your contact points between Sigvald and the base are more than just his two feetsies on top of like another thing. It's you're more worried about the contact points to the scenery base than you are the scenery base to the base.
Sure. Yeah. But it is a very cool model. And yes, obviously people are already working on how do I transform this into a Fulgrim model? And they're I'm sure we're going to see a million of those before too long. And then there is this horrific monstrosity, Glutos or Scallion. Yeah, and there is just so much going on here. We went through Games Workshop did a breakdown of all of the different characters that are on this, and it's a lot. There's a lot of weird, creepy things. Here's like in one of their cool fantasy settings. And it's hard to see in these pictures, but right there, right in the middle, approaching Glutos, is this guy. What is he? Is he a Chaos Halfling? We'll see. And yes, he does have food that he's giving to Glutos. Glutos is $115. I assumed it would be $120, so I was very close. Chaos Familiar. Hey,
you lost by Price is Right rules.
That's true. Yes, closest without going over. And then I did want to show this. So they previewed a couple pages from the Battle Tome, and this I thought was really cool. This caught my eye immediately because at the top right side, especially, they give you some alternate color schemes for your Slaaneshi models. Now, normally we see Slaanesh models in like this, the sort of the pale white and purple. Like that's obviously like the standard version that Games Workshop gives us, but seeing this stuff, especially that one sort of second in from the right with the red claws and the blue, I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, contrasting.
So, yeah, and then the claw variants on the bottom. So it's like you can do different things with your models. You don't have to go by what it shows you on the box or like the typical color schemes for these armies. And then the one thing I'm definitely going to get, even if I'm not going to get the army, is I'm going to get these dice because
you're getting the army. We will win. We will win.
Oh man, the dice are $35, but you get a whole bunch of them at least.
I bought the Custodes dice back, nice. And they're pretty fun. I don't know that they're $35 fun.
Yeah. I mean, if you really get the feeling out of playing them.
It's true. That's fair. I do feel more custody.
Right. You should. I don't know if you know Rabid Wombat, who's in the chat, but he also plays that army, and he found some interesting, not necessarily from Games Workshop models, to use as some of his custodians that worked out pretty well.
Are these the legit custodies, or are they the mean custodies?
They are. Rabid Wombat. Are they? What company is it again? Oh, you painted them fine. They're gold. They look great no matter how you paint them. Gold is very forgiving when basically the whole model is gold with just a couple of details.
As long as you're not sloshing it around, yeah.
Yeah. No, they look great. Was it?
Let me go check my notes. I love it.
Was it Puppets War for that one? I can't remember. He'll show us. And then something that we haven't talked a lot about is that over the last couple of years, Games Workshop has extended its tendrils beyond just models and all of, paints and all of this kind of stuff, but into merch with various other partner companies and then some that they handle through their own umbrella. So along with these new Slaanesh stuff, they have their own shirts and things you can get. Puppets were, yeah. So you guys can connect and look at that stuff. But yeah, you can get, so if you want a Sigvald shirt, you can get a Sigvald shirt.
That's pretty cool looking.
And then I really like this one, the Demon Edge. Rejoice, waifs, and wastrels. It's certainly unique, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, there's a whole line of shirts and hats and other kind of garbage that you can get if you really want to show how nerdy you are. Yeah, Puppets Wars is one of the better third-party sites. They also do stuff that's not specifically for Games Workshop games. They've got things that could fit in for Malifaux and other games as well. Yeah, Zardoz, Night Lords don't get a ton of attention. I mean, you got new models from Forge World last year, right? A few, so that was good. That was good. No merch, sure. Well, it's kind of hard to show. Anything Night Lords is gonna be dripping with flayed skin and blood, and I don't know. At some point, it becomes a little distasteful, maybe. Okay, so that was all of the. So again, that's all of the fantasy stuff that is available for pre-order today. So you can rush out and pre-order that. Now, there is an army that we just got a hint of a tease at this week that we know is coming. It's one of the next codexes, maybe even absolutely the next one, and that is the Drukhari, the Dark Eldar. Now, are you excited about the updates to the Dark Eldar?
As long as they play similar but better, yes. We've had this issue before of where the army was amazing and then they just go, hey, by the way, no. So I think new models coming is great. Mm-hmm. When they introduced the new Incubi last year before that, whenever it was, I don't know. Yeah. It's quarantine kills us all. Those were really neat models, especially for Zar, who hasn't had a new model since 3rd edition, so 20 years. Wow. But I'm cautiously optimistic, which is rare for me. There's specific styles of gameplay that I've wanted to play for the Dark Eldar for a long time. I did end up buying a box of the actual Kabbalite Warriors because I wanted to make a kill team out of it, but I've decided instead of doing that, I'll just use it as the base for a whole brand new army, which should be fun. But the speed aspect is something I'm hoping they keep. I have noticed that the Venoms are no longer for sale on GW's websites, except through the Start Collecting box, which is sold out. So I'm really hoping that either Venoms get an update or they just re-release the box packaged differently like they have with a bunch of stuff. And we get, because like the whole original way that they were run in, what are we in now? Are we in 9th?
Yes. Okay,
so the original way they were run in 8th was you had patrol detachments with Venoms and a couple Ravagers and just high-speed moving guys, but you'd run like 5 or 6 of those, and you'd still have the same amount of CP as you would if you were running a battalion or a brigade or something like that. And it's just like, cool, here's an Archon, 2 squads in Venoms, and a backup Raider or Ravager or some jet bikes. Go send this guy that way. Go send these guys that way. Go send these guys that way. And it's just, I remember playing against Willie in that campaign we were talking about, however many years ago that was. Yeah. And his army was able to get to me turn 1. And I was just like, cool, there's a lot of people here. Let's see if I can play some things down. But like all of their defenses made it so that wasn't as easy as it should have been for Necrons. But I had other issues with Necrons at the time. But like I want a fast army. I want to be able to say, hey, here's your whole gun line, your whole plan. Here's a bunch of torture, what's the word I'm looking for?
Elves.
Torture elves is one thing.
Sure.
It's I can't remember exactly what the term is. Fanatics is not what it is, but that's what we're going to go with. Torture fanatics that just whoosh, in your face. And
just drop it right in there.
Exactly. So,
I mean, it seems to me I mean, Games Workshop has talked about, continuing on making, all Eldar, basically, it seems like they're going to be sort of glass cannon-ish, high speed, hit hard. So we've seen essentially 2 previews thus far. The base Kabbalite Warrior with 2 attacks, so that's something. I think that's the only change there, right? To the Kabbalite Warrior.
Looks like
I think that was the big new deal is
their ballistic skill I think went up as well because I remember originally they were 4+. But that might have been additions ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 2 attacks on the Cowboy Warriors, and then the other cool thing for the Splinter Cannon is that it is 2 damage. So you can still take out a Space Marine or a Primaris Marine with 1 hit potentially from a Splinter Cannon.
The other change is that 4+ save. It used to be 5+.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we'll see. We should, like I said, in theory, the Dark Elves Codex is next, so we should start seeing a bunch more previews and reveals for that in the coming days. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Okay, let me turn off. Remove. Okay, there we go. All right. So you talked about how. Hold on a second here. Okay, so you said that Warhammer was sort of around. Now, did your dad get into it before you got into it, and he was doing stuff, and you were like, "Oh, that looks cool. I'm gonna try it out." We got into it
basically at the same time. It was literally we bought the starter for the intent of splitting it off. I get 1/2, he gets the other half. So I got the Space Marines, he got the Dark Eldar, which he ended up basically never playing. I ended up getting all of that from him, which is why I have as significant of a Dark Eldar as I do. I have the old Astrobale Vec model on his Special Ravager, that type of thing. The Dice of Destruction, I think is what they called it in 5th edition.
That sounds cool.
But he ended up playing Ultramarines. That's the chapter that he does. So he has every special character, every version of every special character that they have for the Ultramarines. He's got a whole bunch of stuff. When Apocalypse came out in the 4th edition, he bought that Battle Company box that had the 6 squads of Tactical Marines, the 2 squads of Assault Marines, 2 squads of Devastators, a Command Squad, a Razorback, 10 or 8 Rhinos. And he actually ended up getting it for less than retail, which was super nice because the guy who had it in his store just wanted it. He just wanted it gone. He didn't want it there anymore. So that was super nice for him. Wow. But he's painted, and he's actually collected different Space Marine armies throughout the years too. So he has Ultramarines, he's got Blood Angels, he's got Dark Angels, all kinds of other stuff. He hasn't done as much of it lately, but I'm hoping he can get back to that point where he can sit there and do his painting, and we can play a game every once in a while. And but I also haven't played a Warhammer 40K game since the last time you and I played. So
that's been a while.
Yeah,
we're definitely due to play again.
Yeah.
Have you looked at doing any of the tabletop simulator stuff?
Our mutual friend Tyler has roped me into playing Infinity on Tabletop Simulator, but I have yet to actually try playing 40K. I still am not used to Tabletop Simulator's systems, so I did work with another member of a different community to help us put together Epic Spell Wars years ago. So that's really my only experience with TTS besides playing Infinity recently. So it would be interesting to try. I did note that it does take a hefty time commitment, so maybe on a weekend where I don't have a whole lot going, I could do that. But given the changes that I'm going through now, especially starting Monday, I won't have a lot of time to do that during the week unless I decide to be like, hey, we're going to do something stupid. Here's a stream of it. So
Okay. Yeah, because I have it all installed and I've just started to tinker with it a little bit, but yeah, I haven't had the time to get any further. But I mean, I hear people are doing it. Once you get used to the system, and as long as you know your Warhammer rules, that it doesn't take appreciably longer than a standard game in real space. So
that's fair.
So something to look forward to one day.
Yeah.
But yes, some way to play during all this pandemic. So surely, if you've been in Warhammer for 20 years, you must have just tons and tons of fully painted armies to feel.
Fun fact about that: the only army that I have where every single model that is built is painted is my Custodes, and that's because it's super easy.
And it's only like 10 models, right?
No, it's about twice that. It's like 20 models. I, for the longest time, did not. I mean, I still don't really like it as much, but I'm more willing to do it. I don't like painting, because I always know that my level of competence and painting skill is not going to be good enough for what I think it should look like. I'm not saying I should have heavy metal, White Dwarf publication level painting, but my level of tabletop standard is probably higher than what actual tabletop standard is.
Okay.
I also noticed that most people's tabletop standard is better than what my actual painting skill is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's unique when it comes to painting and what you're satisfied with. I mean, and I'm certainly not impugning anyone else, because yes, for all of the models I have, hardly any of them are painted, because I have critical, what do you call it?
Critical mass of stuff.
Well, yes, but also just what do you call it when you want to do something but you just can't get to it? Like I have mental blocks against finalizing paint schemes and actually getting paint onto models, but I'm working on it.
I had that same paralysis for the longest time. I think getting into smaller scale games has made it a lot easier for me to be willing to paint more. So I do technically at this point have, comparatively, obviously Warhammer is a huge game, but smaller scale, I have probably more models painted for Infinity and Marvel Crisis Protocol, and even Batman miniatures than I would a comparative army or squads of that size for 40K. So
yeah, it definitely seems like if you're starting a new project that is contained, and it's like, okay, I only have this, this is my army or list or whatever it is, I just have to do these. And it's definitely more manageable than, again, like me. I haven't been in the hobby nearly as long as some other people, but I have a lot of models, and it's like, okay, I finally just about have my colors finalized. Now I have hundreds of models to do.
Yeah, because you get into that thing where you wanna play, you wanna do your stuff, you wanna be able to get in there and actually experience what you've paid all this money for. And unfortunately, GW has this issue where you're not really paying for the models and what it costs them to make. You're paying for the power of what they do on the tabletop. And in a game that doesn't evolve as much as GW's games do, that's fine. But because you could buy something and then not even 2 weeks later have that whole idea of what that is eliminated, only for it to come back down the line, that's why their whole thing of not invalidating models is super important, but they sometimes accidentally invalidate models with rule changes by making something else more powerful. I know the big conspiracy is that they do this so they can make model sales. I don't think they're that bright to be able to do something like that.
Well, and the degree to which that happens is so minute that I don't know if they could be like the big thing is like Terminators. Like now, it's certain armies, it's really good to have Lightning Claw Terminators rather than, in some cases, any Thunderhammer Terminators. So, that's a degree of complexity. Yeah, I don't think they're thinking, aha, we'll get them to buy new Terminators to put Lightning Claws on them. Like, that seems a little bit too in-depth for them to plan on.
Exactly. So, I mean, I've never worried about that. I try to do rule of cool and play what I think is going to be fun. Sometimes that doesn't always work out. I had that Sky Hammer Assault Force, Strike Force, whatever it was, where it was the 2 Assault Squads, the 2 Devastator Squads, and the 2 Drop Pods. I bought stuff that I could just do that. I bought 2 Devastator Squads, I bought an Assault Squad, and I bought 2 Drop Pods. I played it once. It was amazing. It wrecked everything, but that was it. That was literally it. Yeah. And they not even did they go so far as like making something else more viable. They just completely said, "Hey, this cool thing that you guys had for realistically, it was only about a month that we had that whole package." They just like, "Cool, guess what? Detachments are done." And I'm like, so
and it happens. And again, but again, like you even mentioned though, sometimes it's actually good because you'll have a type of unit that a new edition will come in, or rules or points updates will happen, and all of a sudden it'll be garbage. You're like, okay, well, you put it on a shelf and it just sits there for maybe years, but then all of a sudden the next rules come out and all of a sudden it's good again. You're like, oh, I can finally bring this back. These models that I've had for 10, 20 years.
Yeah, so exactly.
It can work both ways realistically.
So that's another reason why I try not to focus on things like that. Just play what I think is cool. Yeah, like I have a box here that was my first start for my Primaris, and it's got 10 Primaris guys, 3 of those sniper dudes, a couple special characters, and what is the Invictor war suit? Is that what it was called?
Yes. Yeah.
I have that. I've never played them, but
yeah,
they're there when I want to play them.
Sure. And as E. Lackey mentioned in the chat, so Tabletop Simulator is also good, yes, because you don't actually have to buy the models. And you can try out and play any army that you want.
Yeah.
So say you were thinking of, like, Tau seems interesting, but I don't know if I want to start the investment of actually, buying into it. Well, you can go online and actually try it out, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can try the Hedonites of Slaanesh before I buy them.
Yeah, but you're gonna buy them anyway, so what's the point of
that? Yeah, and also Forge World stuff, so things that you might not have access to.
Yeah.
Models that are out of print as well, which they're in this day and age there are other ways of finding such things if you wanted to hunt them down. But you can try them out on Tabletop Simulator. I wanted to circle back to let's take a look at some of your cool models that you've built and painted.
So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go from like evolution of my skill, or do you want me to show off?
Let's do that. Let's do that, because I know, and I want to talk about contrast paints, because you were, for a time at least, I don't know if you're still doing it as much, but you were definitely an adopter of contrast paints, and you figured out some really good stuff to do with them.
Since contrast has come out, I have not used any other paints. There's a couple things where I'm like, I know this was an old scheme that I used that's not going to work with contrast, but like I'll mix the two aspects of it together, not the paints themselves, but the way that I paint them, because that would be crazy. But yeah, I mean, I haven't painted anything in a year, I want to say, which is funny because you think
it hasn't been that long.
What did I paint last then?
It was the Crisis Protocol stuff. It wasn't a year ago. I mean, it may have been last year, but it wasn't a year ago.
I don't know that you're right, but okay, I'll take your word.
I might not be, but
I mean, I have a bunch of Crisis Protocol stuff that's sitting out of vision that used to be over here, that is primed, but I haven't painted anything that's come out for that game since the Black Order hit. But and that was the Dinsik, I don't know how to pronounce that. I hope that was correct. Pointed out that you'd think the quarantine would make me want to paint more, but working the job that I did, I just didn't have any energy to do anything other than survive.
Sure. Yes.
So years and years and years ago, I started painting Black Templars, and I only have one painted model here from that I was willing to like actually pull out, because I do, given that this Black Templar army has been there together for 20 years, there are some old models that are terribly painted, and I'm going to show you one of those, but like it's all mixed in with other things, and it's mixed in with models that I've been given by other people that I've purchased, so on and so forth. So one of the first character models outside of the Emperor's Champion, who I cannot find, and that scares me, is a chaplain that I had, and you can kind of see.
Do the hand thing.
Oh yeah, let's see if I can do that. Right.
It works on most cameras, at least.
I think mine is not set up to auto. So let me change that.
Okay. Yeah, using quarantine to figure out like timeline it's interesting and sometimes very helpful and sometimes very depressing and sad.
Why is this? I don't know if that I'm going to be able to do this. I wonder if it's going to complain if I do this. There we go. So this should be a little bit better. There we go.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So you can see there's no highlights. It's very basically painted. I painted this when I was 13. And actually, originally, and it's going to autofocus because this camera.
Yeah, if you.
Let me. I should have been more prepared for this. I apologize.
No, you never know how these things are going to turn out until you're until you're doing it live.
There's actually like a program that I'm supposed to use. Here we go. To capture. If I can get it so that I just focus it manually, it should be fine.
Sure.
Anyway, so this chaplain originally came with a bolt pistol, and I have on character models, I usually like them having better guns. So I don't want to install this.
Getting some plasma action.
Yeah, so I decided with the plasma to do autofocus. There we go. That should. Here we go.
And...
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just.
That's weird.
Oh.
No, that was the autofocus. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to actually do what I need to do.
It doesn't like you.
Yeah, it really doesn't. You'd be surprised. If this were... Oh, you know what? I bet you I could do this. Let's open up Streamlabs and hope it doesn't crash my computer. So plasma has always been one of my favorite things in this game. And as you can see, this plasma pistol has been painted recently. It looks gray, but it is metal because for the longest time, he just had a regular plastic, like not even painted pistol at all. Configure video.
I was gonna say I'm not familiar with that model.
Yeah, this is an old very, very old. So I do apologize for the quality of the camera. It's zoomed in.
We're getting there.
Very high standard. And now it doesn't want to do anything. We're doing it live, folks.
Typical technology.
Yeah.
Zarda says it's from the old Assault Marine box.
The plasma pistol is, yes. So actually, is this painted? Yeah, it is. So you can see here, it's like that skull is poorly painted. The Rosarius is poorly painted. My flocking, I actually haven't flocked a base in 10 years. So, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's not a Twitch stream until there's technical difficulties. Exactly. So this is a very, very old model.
Sure.
This is a pewter model. Like I could drop it. It should be fine. Should be fine. You can notice there's some paint damage on that, the Cronus Arcanum, because again, this model is old. But going into more recent editions, I have gotten a little bit better at painting. So you can see here, we've got a Marine here. The eyes, they're not greatly painted, but better than normal. You'll notice my white's still not very clear. It's not very clean, so on and so forth. I did actually a pretty good job, I think, on that the parchment that's supposed to be on a shoulder pad. Metal is always the easiest thing to paint. This is actually pre-me washing models, so it's very crisp as opposed to like not crisp.
Yeah.
But then moving into more recent ones, I have a couple in here. Just make sure it's not super dusty. So I went through and I bought a bunch of Primaris. So you'll see this is used with. The previous models are normal paints, normal GB paints for years and years. This is 100% contrast, and all of the metal has been washed with Nuln oil. The black Templar actual contrast paint came out pretty well. Even the actual like utility stuff is all like snakebite leather, I think.
Nice. And
the white here is not actually white; it's the gray sear base. So what I did was instead of painting white on there, I did the idea of just painting the black around everything else. So, and then if I can get this right. You can see a little bit of the eye paint in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, and then the actual like eagle on the center also has the Nuln oil washed metal. So the metal that I've been using originally was called bolt gun metal, but now it's called iron breaker, lead belcher. I think it's lead belcher.
Lead belcher, yeah. Lead belcher's pretty good.
And then I do have a couple unfinished models here. So I bought a box of I want to say they're called Eliminators. But yeah, so this is all, once again, all contrast, not finished. You can see even the base isn't finished. But like getting in there and doing the paints the way that it's supposed to be, getting that white, getting the red in there, the straps, all that stuff. I don't know if I've painted so the lighting is very poor in here. But that is actually metal painted. I don't know if it's washed though.
Okay.
So, and I think this is supposed to be the sergeant for the group.
Yeah, the one that doesn't have his rifle to bear.
Yeah. So, and I do have the other two guys here. That's not the right model. I saw the red and I automatically assumed it was the correct model. It is not. So we've got the two normal dudes here.
Yeah.
If I do that right. So they're stuff to bear. You know, you could see little imperfections in there, little things that I missed in the painting, but this is actually a tabletop quality that I'm relatively proud of compared to some of the old stuff that I have. And then I do have.
Well, and one thing I wanted to note when you were talking about slight imperfections when you're using contrast, especially at what I've found is that when I'm using contrast and I have trouble getting two different colored sections to meet because I'm trying to be very careful, because contrast you can't easily you have to be very careful layering contrast, because you can't go lighter like you can with normal paints. But you can go darker. So I'm always trying to think, okay, wait, which color do I need to lay down first if I'm having another layer or another surface that's going to overlap it, that then I can color over with the darker layer, which depending on how much traditional paints you've done can be an opposite sort of mindset.
Yeah. And because I hate painting, I don't paint, so it's not very often. So I do have this guy here, which probably is my best painted Warhammer 40K model that I've painted over the last few years.
Cool.
Extra washes in there. This is a Primaris Chaplain, who I have actually is the Rubicon version of this guy. So in his weapon for a better weapon, different Arcanum, excuse me. But like I went through and I painted as much as I could, as best as I could. You can even see the pages of the book are still like,
that's cool.
White. Which again, not white, it's just the gray sear left washed. So because white is impossible. GW does not make white. They make very, very light gray.
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, welcome Emily Wolf and Raiders. Thank you so much for joining. Emily Wolf, I'm sorry I missed your first stream. I was very excited to see it, but I followed you, so I'll definitely check out another stream coming up. And yes, I was going to ask you about white, because I know you have very specific thoughts about the contrast paint apothecary whites. And well, I'm sure he'll be back momentarily. If you're still listening, one of your cameras came apart, but I'm sure he'll be right back. But yeah, so like I was saying, with the contrast especially, is that there are, because like I said, because you have to look out for what color can I know, right? What's going to happen with what colors can go darker or lighter. I sometimes have trouble getting right up to like an edge of something and getting the paint in all of the little cracks before I color over it. And when he comes back and shows you something, I'll actually grab a painted model that I have to show you a good example of that. But when I was painting the models for my fellow blood-curdling that's fine, no problem. When I was painting the models for my fellow blood-curdling friends, I had some of those issues where it's like, okay, well, this color has to get right up to this line, and I don't want to overlap it. And you're back.
Sorry. Too many programs trying to use my cameras.
It happens.
Like that. So I'm going to try one more camera change, and I'm just going to leave it there until I'm done showing things off, and hopefully I don't break everything.
Yeah, and I'm going to grab a model real quick.
Okay, sounds good.
So you talk.
So apothecary white. It's not. So they call it apothecary white, but realistically, it's just gray. And from what I've heard, one of the things is that they can't make white because what's required to make white uses chemicals that GW is not allowed to use in their paints. Something to that effect. I don't know how true that necessarily is. And there's my hand, by the way. But anything that comes through for white on my characters is not white. It's just gray, either highlighted or just left the gray sear the way it is. So tried to use apothecary white on both Wrathbone and Grey Seer, which is the two bases for contrast.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. The GW's white for the longest time. Their original white, skull white from back in the day, was white, and I do apologize once again for the quality of this camera. Eventually, I'll get that fixed. But the main issue is their white is just not. It's just not white. Like that's really That's all there is to it.
Or if it is white, it's just terrible paint, and it just gets clumpy and chunky and is just unusable.
And that was the other thing is that when I bought the newer version of the white, it clumped and died in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And their paints, I've had paints of theirs that have lasted since the day I bought them back 20 years ago. So it's disappointing that that's the case, but that is the real case. So moving a little bit on to more recent things, I've played Batman miniatures game twice with another one of our mutual friends. But I have painted a lot of miniatures. So I've only brought along 2 miniatures from that game that I'm relatively proud of. So we have here Damian Wayne Robin, the Gray Sun, as it were, using his Court of Owl mask there, excuse me. This was a set that was Goliath and Robin, Damian Wayne. So Goliath is in a bigger box elsewhere. This guy was actually, not as hard to paint as I thought it was going to be. You can't really see it, but on his knee pad there's a little bit of white that left through, or gray, I should say. Might be able to see that little blip right there on that top knee pad, but it doesn't really come across when you're looking at him from range.
Yeah, it just looks like a highlight.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's this guy who was actually really hard to paint, but came out really good, honestly. So this is Deathstroke from Arkham Origins. It's one of the models from the Arkham games that they decided, and I apologize for my nasty hands.
Can't tell. It's fine.
I'm still recovering from all the cuts and stuff that I got from work. So, but yeah, the blue armor there, the staff itself that's like yellow and metal and stuff like that, and then the orange that came across with all the different things. Also did a little bit of a brick base with some pooling there, and then the black outline. So I am using contrast for the Batman minis. I now pretty much don't paint with anything other than contrast for any miniatures in general, just because it's so much easier to paint with contrast than it is.
However, and quicker.
much quicker.
Yeah.
Speaking of other games, I have here a whole tray of stuff that's from another game that I like to play called Infinity. Now, this is what's known as a U.S. Ariadna Ranger Force grunt. And this was the last thing. These were the last things that I realistically painted with regular paints. You can see it doesn't have as much definition there as what contrast paints would do, because all the other normal GW paints are very flat, which is fine. Yeah. It's not like that's a big issue. I don't know if I've ever washed these guys. I think I have.
You can always throw another wash on the model.
Exactly. So this is what's known as a blackjack. This is the heavy infantry things there. I like this model better because it's got the HMG rather than the tier 2 sniper rifle, but he's got his little revolver there, his magnum, his little packs and stuff like that. This guy was actually more difficult to paint than I honestly thought he was. And even just looking at the camera view here, I can see on the insides here some of the gray that's been left over, which I can probably hide with some it's interesting. It actually looks gray on the camera, but it's supposed to be metal.
Yeah, just not picking up the.
Yeah, and then you can see the dude's visor right there in the center.
So it's an Invictor warsuit.
Yeah, basically. Which I did show one of those off. I do have 2 more that I'm going to show here from Infinity, and then I'll move on to another set of models here. So I've got what's known as the Unknown Ranger. This guy was a little hard to paint, but it's basically Captain America, but more mysterious.
Ooh.
So this little shield thing right here was actually a complete and total accident. What ended up happening was I put the metal on there, and then I accidentally washed. I don't know how it was an accident, but it was the USARF there and the little shield in the center there, and it looks a lot better than anything there that would have been done otherwise. So, and then it's got a little bit of skin, which needs to be washed, although actually not really. I don't know. And then this model was given to me by Tyler. This is originally a Drew's security team war driver, I believe. But what I did with her instead is that she is the dozer engineer for my squad that's able to move the remote that I have that's part of this force. The model originally supposed to have blue hair, but I decided to go orange and red, so that way I can say I have Becky Lynch on my future force of army guys. So, because that's basically what they are. That's what US ARF is they're just army guys. Mine are just not green. So that's Infinity. I do have a couple of Age of Sigmar models here. I do have a couple Tau models here, and then some Crisis Protocol I can show to round off. I was going to do a full pretty big Tau force, but I ended up not doing that, partly because the quarantine really messed up with my ability to get paints and stuff done.
Yeah.
I also completely redid the layout of this room here. So I don't have as much space to paint anymore. But given that I'm doing streaming, so on and so forth, excuse me, I will end up probably painting here once I fix my key light situation. But you'll notice how he's got the blades here. These are fusion blades that are specific to the Farsight Enclaves, which that's what this guy is. He's a cold star with fusion blades. Everything's washed. It's all, the whole scheme is basically what you see here, the red, the black, and the gray. And then the fusion blades there with the I can't remember the name of it. It's the very light blue. You'll see a little bit again later. I just don't remember the name of it.
Now wait, was that gray? Was that Apothecary gray?
No, this
was
Apothecary
white rather.
No, this was just Grey Seer, the actual base itself. So because I primed these guys all red, so the red you see here is the
interesting
Mephiston red spray.
Okay.
Excuse me. So I had to actually get in here with the Black Templar on the actual black parts, and then the Grey Seer base paint in here, washed with Nuln oil to make it dirtied and look the way that the army is supposed to look.
Cool.
So
that works.
And then, speaking of that, of Tau and that paint scheme, this is the only model of Aeronautica Imperialis that I have completely painted. But you can see, this is the Tiger Shark, I believe. It's got all of the proper things. It's been washed. The gray could probably use another layer washed just to make it so that it doesn't look as bad as it does right now. But you've got the back engines here that are washed and painted black. And then the undercarriage here where I have a little bit of the white carried over. Very simple, mainly because I didn't feel like I needed with these models to do a whole bunch of detail on them.
Yeah.
I think the wash itself kind of just sets it up as what it should be. So let me pull this box up here really quick so I'm not aiming downward. Speaking of Age of Sigmar, a lot of the Age of Sigmar models that I have are actually from Warhammer Underworlds. So let's start with the first crew from there. I do have a couple extra special characters from the original run of Age of Sigmar, the very first starter box that came with them, and I think what was the other side of that?
What was the first one? Yeah. Oh, it was the Khorne guys.
Yeah, Khorne Bloodtide. So, which I ended up selling those to what's his name? Nolan, who never actually paid me back for those, but that's okay.
Oh, get him.
So, it's not that big of a deal.
Watch out, Nolan. We're coming after you.
So here I decided to go with a darker bronze look for the weapons. Everything that would normally have been white or different colored, I put as gray. And then the skin itself is actually the darker Guillemon flesh, which people tell me Dark Oath is supposed to be lighter and Guillemon's supposed to be darker. But that's only if you actually thin the paints down, which I very rarely ever do.
Because you can thin your contrast paints using contrast medium.
It's difficult and it's inconsistent.
Yes, but it can give you a range of color. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I also have the hair here, which is just straight gray. But in terms of the armor, I went with that lighter blue, like almost ethereal design because I thought that was really cool for what Age of Sigmar, Sigmarine models are supposed to be. So you'll see on the shield here, we just went with straight. This is not Retributor Gold; it's Balthazar Gold, which looks like a bronze. So GW is really good at naming their paints. I am missing one piece of paint. Let's see there, that should be a black half to it, shaft. Yeah. I knew I had the right word. And then just that little Ethereum blue there, which if I remember the name of the color, I'll say it. And I'll be like, oh, that's the name, but I can't remember it right now. But nothing here has been washed, just the contrast like stuff itself. And then the last member of this group.
I like that blue. It's nice on the armor.
Yeah, I've painted regular line file guys with it, some archer characters and some hammer characters with them. And it really does work well to make the entire army stand out from any other Sigmar forces.
Yeah.
But it's also really hard to paint. So those are called Steelheart's Champions from the very first expansion, or the very first base game for Warhammer Underworlds. Then we have here Farstrider's something. I haven't painted the bird yet because animals scare me when it comes to painting.
Oh, but contrast. It looks like there's enough detail in the feathers that the contrast will suck in there.
Yeah. So, but then the one thing I did with these guys differently is that they have this little hide here that's like supposed to be dragon hide. Let's see if I can get a better look at it. There we go.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You can kind of see the contrast pools in on the recesses, and then you have different things here. Some of these guys are also not finished. Obviously, the bird's not finished. You'll notice that big line there in the center. I do not care about mold lines or any of those types of things because I am lazy.
Well, also, once you paint it, it should be less noticeable.
So here's another one of those guys here, and he's got that same basic layout, the blue, the bolt gun there, the gold/bronze, whatever, and then just the cape itself, which has its own little like difference in there. And this was actually a lot easier to paint than I thought it was going to be. I just basically slathered it in there, and it worked out pretty well. Last guy out of this group here. I don't remember what I actually used for that.
I like that color scheme. Yeah, and that is also true. Rabid wombat birds do have 2 wings, so there should be some separation between the wings.
That's true. That's fair. And might even actually have been what they were going for, but I just didn't pay attention to that.
Maybe, yeah.
So I also have the starter characters from the second Underworlds expansion called Dire Vault. So these guys are the Evocators and the Castigator, I think is what the leader is called. But I went with, instead of that blue like leather look on those other guys, I decided to go with the more darker gray to signify the fact that they're supposed to be, the caster group, since they have swords and staves and stuff like that. And you can even see the plumage here is darker than it is on the other characters. So each of these groups do have a specific style that they're supposed to be painted as. Outside of this, there is still some unfinished portions on there. I forgot to paint the top parts. But again, as you can see, and on push fit models, it's actually a lot harder to get them like to stay sealed.
Yeah. No, I talk a lot about push fit models on my hobby and stream because I've been putting together a lot of stuff from like starter boxes. And yes, so you have to be careful because I like to use glue in mine to make sure they stay fully sealed. But you have to make very carefully sure that the glue doesn't get into. All right, are you ready for it? We do this. So when you have push fit models, there are holes and there are pegs, and when you put it in, it locks in because of air pressure. And if you get any glue inside there, then the peg won't actually go all the way into the hole and create a flush connection. So I'm always looking for parts to glue around, not in the hole. So there you go. There's your hand gestures for the week.
So this guy, same situation. Important. He's not necessarily finished, but he's got that Guillemon flesh going on. It does make him look cooler. It makes him look more. It makes it so that my Sigmarines are less all white people, which was not necessarily the intent. I just wanted a different flesh-looking color, but this works perfectly for that type of like characteristic. So next time I play this army on the table, I can just say, "Hey, it's a bunch of people you wouldn't recognize as rescuers rescuing." So,
and I like how. Oh yeah, that's fine. I like. I really like the way that you did. So all the armor is the same color across all of the units, but you do use other colors to differentiate them by like the cloaks, the furs, and other things. That's really cool. And if you had that in a gigantic army, you would very easily be able to visually tell which unit is what.
Yeah, and what's cool is that each of those 3-man squads are able to actually be played as normal characters in Age of Sigmar, which is another reason why I decided to go check that out. So one more model here. This is the Lord Ordinator, basically Mr. Stormhammer himself.
Yes, I have one of those because you need one of those to play with your Karajan Overlords. It's a whole thing.
Interesting. Oh, is that one of the special squads for them? Or
he buffs some kind of like whatever, like the War Machine.
Okay, gotcha.
Keyword. So he helps out a lot.
So this guy again, he's more along the original ones where he has the light gray paneling there, which that quilted panel thing was actually a lot easier to paint than I thought it was going to be. I've noticed that with contrast, things become a lot easier to paint than you would normally expect. So, and then he's the same thing, but also more exposed armage. This is one of the few models that's like a Stormcast Eternal, but not completely armored. So
that's cool.
But yeah, so and then I have a Lord Relictor in there, but that's not necessarily as important. And then, so one of the reasons why I actually have been super into painting again is because I have been playing, not often lately, but I've been playing Marvel Crisis Protocol. So Marvel characters, originally I was kind of annoyed that I was going to have to like build and paint stuff, but these guys have been actually super easy to paint. So I'll show you one of the earliest characters that I ended up painting, which is Yield Crossbones. Now, this model actually looks different than what it's supposed to be. You'll notice a couple of models that I have that are like that. He's still got the arms and stuff like that. He's still got his Bane-like face. But I decided to go with more traditional tactical style coloring on them rather than having him be all black so that he stands out with the characters that he's supposed to be doing. And again, you'll notice little nicks, little things in here and there that are just weren't finished or things that I didn't catch. But at the same time, it also kind of adds a little bit of flavor.
Yeah.
And these were my first non-GW models that I had painted in a long time since I had painted any of my Infinity stuff. But a couple other models that I'm relatively proud of are a lot of the Asgardians that I've picked up recently. So you'll have Loki here, who's actually was a lot of these models are very difficult to put together, but then end up being really easy to paint, which is usually the other way around for me. So
they have really thin little spindly limbs. A lot of them.
Yeah, there's a Shuri in here that I almost threw across the room because her arms wouldn't go together. But you'll notice the little ice blast here, the actual little nub on the inside there. They're using that same thing as I have for the armor for like effect generation. All of this, all this gold is not actually gold; it's yellow. It is the darker yellow contrast that actually looks really good as gold. Almost like a pseudo non-metallic metal.
Yeah.
And then I did wash it a little bit with some Nuln oil to make it so that it looks a little bit darker than it's supposed to. But that's Loki. And then I decided instead of Brunhilde that I would do Tessa Thompson for Valkyrie here. And traditionally a character that's supposed to have black armor, white skin, and then the blonde hair, I decided because she was amazing in Ragnarok that I would do her style of scheme from Thor Ragnarok, the end at least. Yeah, and you'll notice the blue is quite dark there for what it's supposed to be, and then just the traditional way that she looks outside of the way that Brunhilde is technically supposed to look as this character.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have not played any of the Asgardians or any of the other stuff after that. I have yet to play any of my Guardians of the Galaxy. The last army that I squad that I put together was what are they called? The Wakandans. So Killmonger, Black Panther, Shuri, and Okoye with a couple extra things. I think the big squad at the time was those 4 and Venom. But the models that I have been waiting for a long time that I put together are Thanos' Black Order. And unfortunately, because this game's a little bit more stylized after the MCU, there is no Supergiant. But that decision might change later on. We're not entirely sure. So, first model here is going to be Cole Obsidian. No, this is Black Dwarf. He's actually was very easy to paint. I used a technique on his actual skin that I did on Doomsday, where I just made sure that on the inside of the actual muscles there that it just pools a little bit to be able to get that definition in there. but I also think I did a different scheme than what the original box art shows. But again, not gold. That's just dark yellow.
Just the yellow, yeah.
And then you do have a little bit of the purple inside his little insignia on. I can't get my finger in there. His insignia on his belt.
On the belt, yeah.
And then up there, yeah. So
that's cool.
Coal Obsidian, Black Dwarf, whatever you want to call him. This one is Corvus Glaive.
Oh, Corvus Glaive, yeah.
So again, contrast is really good for just pooling in there and getting those little details that you would not otherwise grab.
Yeah.
So, and he's very interesting character in and of himself. So skin there done. The skin for him and for Ebony Maw is the exact same color because that was just the easiest way of being able to do it. You'll notice a lot of the same colors. There's whites, blacks, grays, and then the gold and stuff. I haven't finished painting his actual base, but he's playable at this point because I don't really care.
So great.
And then we've got Proxima Midnight, everybody's favorite Thresher food. The face was relatively difficult to get because she has that like white line that's underneath, in the eyes. But the blue was otherwise pretty easy. Again, all golds are not actually golds. So I think it just looks better. It makes it look more comic based than it does actually like metal realism.
Yeah, just like it would look in the movies. Yeah.
Speaking of metal realism and more comic based looks, I went the opposite direction for that. So I did do the normal Thanos here. He does have his Infinity Gauntlets. He does have all of the little things, but this is actually all gold. It is Retributor gold. I did it this way because I wanted him to stand out from anybody else who was supposed to have gold iconography or any type of characteristics for it. But hardest parts on this guy was his face, his teeth, and then the actual Infinity Gems. But I think they all came out a lot better. It looks a lot better in person.
Yeah, I mean, everything does. Everything always does. That's what we always talk about. Yeah, it's you got to see these things in person, or like in a really good photograph. If the person taking the photograph knows what to do with lights and color balance
like
and everything else.
So, and then of course he has the whole throne here.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So this one was a lot harder to paint than I thought it was going to be just because of the surface area of it. But he does come in and out, which is super nice. And then I have the extra base that just sits in there. To designate that. That's where Thanos is supposed to go. That's specifically for the ultimate version, ultimate encounter, whereas this version of the character, just the individual, can be played on an actual force.
It's like like a scenario.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically a scenario. So there's a bunch of other models in here. Interestingly enough, I forgot I had this character because I haven't painted the other model that came with it.
Oh.
But I have Ronin here, which eventually, once I get a Silver Surfer, a Gladiator, a Quasar, and a Icon, I can run, and a Beta Ray Bill, I can run the Annihilators.
Yep. Well, is there a Cosmo?
Not yet. That's something that's probably going to come at some point when they need to fill some gaps in teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they do actually have a lot of really good models out. There's just stuff that I haven't painted yet because I haven't had the time to. I haven't had the willingness to, just because of how bad I feel most days. Obviously that has changed nowadays because I don't have to worry about too much anymore, which is super fantastic. All right, this doesn't crash me. Yeah.
I have yet to play that game, but it looks cool. The models look great.
It's fun. It can be complicated.
Sure.
But
most things.
Yeah, but it's a relatively straightforward game is what it is. The alternation of actions, I think, kind of works a little bit against the way that it probably could be played.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think that's also a balance so that somebody doesn't just get walked over in a game.
Yeah.
So
well, here, I want to show some other models that you painted that I have here. No. So again, the contrast. So we got the review samples of the unpainted HeroClix. So there's the Namor,
which that water was really difficult to paint, and then somehow became super easy as I was painting it. I don't really get how that happened.
It looks cool. There's some contrast paints, depending, but oftentimes contrast paints looks really good over things that are supposed to be translucent.
Yeah. So like I think her her skin's a little darker than it probably should be, but the fire came out really good in the way that I was painting that with the blazing orange or whatever it's called. Yeah, I think it's actually Fire Slayer orange. So, and I think with that one I had to end up doing 2 layers to actually get it to stick properly, because that's the other thing is that the translucent plastic is not conducive to paint. But I made it work.
Yeah, no, and I had the same issues with mine. Yeah, like so here. Okay, so here's your hope, which again, like those energy fists look fantastic.
Yeah,
like if you get the paint, if you get the paint on there, it looks really good. And I had really good luck on my cannonball.
Cannonball, yeah, that looks pretty dope actually.
Yeah, the bottom actually doesn't look that good because it's translucent enough where you can see the black underneath.
Black, yeah.
But the rest of it, yeah, like it actually turned out surprisingly good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I was gonna say, I don't want to walk into that accidentally. So talking about contrast. So here's a model that's it's in work. I have not finished it. There's a billion details on this thing, but
that's cool.
So on the arms there, I very specifically figured out that I wanted the two-tone with the less furry parts and then the furry parts, and then I went in and did the less furry parts first with the lighter contrast, so then I can make sure I got the coverage onto where the fur was, knowing that I could paint the fur in the darker contrast over it, and I didn't have to worry about that sort of seam line that you sometimes get with contrast, not wanting to overlap anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a Wild West Exodus model that one day I'll finish. Just so many little details, and I was like, okay, I want to do every little detail, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
It's cool, but it's a lot of work. What was I going to ask this? So when you so say we all had vaccines tomorrow and we could get together and play. Oh, let me switch the camera. What's the first thing that you want to play when we get back together?
There are just so many things to do. That's a really good question. I guess probably the answer to that question is Marvel Crisis Protocol, because there's so many things. Like I could easily bring out a Custodes army or my Black Templars army, or put together the small little Tau force that I have, or play the US ARF stuff that I have for Infinity, or the Spiral Core that I bought recently. I could throw together Batman and stuff like that. But I think MCP has the best longevity because it's under a company that seems to care about what it was doing. And there's so many different models and stuff out. And I mean, so I counted it earlier, and I have 30 models unpainted with 5 builds. But I also have like 30 models that have actually been painted. So they have a lot of stuff out there with more stuff coming. I was supposed to pick up the recent Inhumans drop that happened yesterday, but for some reason, 2 items that were ordered at the same time, that were shipped at the same time, one has showed up yesterday and the other's showing up next week, where it seems to be that's the only location that's happening. So I'm not sure how that exactly works.
Okay, all right.
But I have Avengers, I have Cabal, I have Guardians of the Galaxy, I have the Black Order, I have Wakanda, I have Asgardians, and that's just the painted stuff. There's Crime Syndicate, Web Warriors, Mutants, X-Men, Freedom Force, Brotherhood, X-Force, Inhumans are in. I have more Asgardians that I haven't built or painted. Those types of things. There's a whole area around me that's just covered in stuff. So, yeah. But like I think that MCP is the one thing, because there's people that I still want to play that game with. It's either that or play some of the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid scenarios that I haven't played as of yet, because I have new stuff over here that I'm not painting because it's a lot more to paint. Plus new stuff coming, and then some friends of ours have my actual base set and other things that I purchased back a while ago. So
okay. Well, yeah, you'll have to teach me how to play Crisis Protocol.
Absolutely.
And then maybe I'll pick up some models for that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how team building works for it. So.
Well, that's the interesting thing about it is that as for force building, you bring 10 models.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what it is. Inside the game itself, you have these things called crisis cards, which there's two different kinds. There's I don't remember the exact names of them, but there's red ones and there's blue ones. You pick one of each, and they give you the layout of what you're playing, where specific objectives and stuff like that, what your objectives are, and then how many points you can play, squad points, for your squads. The lowest I've seen it is 13. The highest I've seen it is 20. So each character has its own threat level associated with it. That's what you're building up to. And then out of your 10 characters, you can be like, all right, I'm going to use this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and that's my 15 points. Or, hey, we got 20, so I'll throw these 4 and then this guy on top, and I have a little bit more to put this person can take an infinity gem, so we're going to put the time gem on them or something like that.
Okay.
Only specific characters can have gems, but that's the total thing. So realistically, if you wanted to just play mutants and nothing else, there are 8 mutant models out there right now. We still have X-Force coming. We still have more other mutants. We have Deadpool coming, those types of things.
Sure.
But eventually you can get it so that your entire force is just Brotherhood affiliation once they have 10 models.
Yeah.
That may not work in every situation or scenario, but if you're playing with somebody who's just like, all right, we're going to do this scenario. This is what you're going to build. Let's go. Then whoosh, you just do it. The way that I originally had it was I was building Wakanda Cabal, because there's one of the Wakandan models, Killmonger, is also Cabal. So I'm able to take and build 2 full affiliations with only 8 models, which leaves me to be able to have a character like Winter Soldier or a character like Venom who fits a situation of, if I know there's a target that needs to die, and I know that my opponent is going to play that, I'm going to put Venom on the board, and the first thing that's going to happen is Venom is going to leap there and eat that person.
Sure.
So that's the type of strategy that you have with that type of thing. And they're starting to get into situations where affiliations have different leaders. So Brotherhood right now just has Magneto, Toad, Sabretooth, and Mystique. But both Magneto and Mystique are considered leaders for that affiliation. So if you don't want to play Magneto, you can still play the other 3, with Mystique being the leader and having her own Freedom Force style affiliation leadership power. And as long as your force is at least half of the models match the affiliation you're running, then you get that affiliation.
Okay.
And there's team tactics cards. There's a bunch of other stuff that's associated with it.
Yeah.
But realistically, all you need to do is bring 10 models, 8 team tactics cards, and then all of the you bring 3 of the blue cards, 3 of the red cards, and then
to pick your
out what's going to actually end up being the scenario. So it's not a whole lot. You could get away with just buying all the mutant stuff. And some of the a couple other expansions for specific tactics cards or scenario cards that you want, and then the dice and the measuring tools, and that you wouldn't even need to buy the core set for that if you didn't want to.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said so you can add. You said in some cases you can add like an infinity gem to a character. So is that pretty much the extent of like customizing units?
Basically, yeah. Everybody has a very specific way that they're played. But certain characters like Corvus Glaive, Proxima Midnight, Ebony Maw, Thanos, Doctor Strange, Loki, they can take one of the infinity gems. Thanos can have them all, but he can only equip 2 to himself, unless you're playing the ultimate scenario, which
is a whole different.
Yeah, exactly. But that's basically 2 people playing against one person, and that one person has Thanos with the whole power, where he just goes boom, deleted, boom, deleted, boom, deleted. That type of thing. So,
slight tangent. I saw in one of the random model groups I'm in, somebody had a picture of. They took a photo on their table. They had a Shadow Sun, a Commander Shadow Sun model, and a Winter Soldier model. And then it was a short story about how somehow they met on the battlefield and tried to kill each other, but then they stopped, looked into each other's eyes, realized they were both communists, and fell in love. And Yeah, it was like a Valentine's Day thing, but I was like, that's so great.
So
it was a great little meme. Yeah, I'll definitely check that game out at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a TTS build for it. So if ever we have enough time for it and we can figure out how it's supposed to work, you know.
I assume there is for every game, that it's just a matter of tracking down the elements you need to make it look right.
I remember when we used to have to use Vassal to play things, so that was a 2D version of it.
Cool. If people weren't watching yesterday, I just wanted to mention that so I started building the Storm Speeder. So I went and picked it up, and I got this far. Oh, I forgot forgot that the Marines are not glued in, but that's fine. So here is, so here's what it looks like, the base of the vehicle, and again, yeah, they're not glued in, so you can paint them and then put them back in. They do have lower legs that are sculpted in the model. They don't have feet, but they do have lower legs. And yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along really well. It looks
it
cool.
Actually looks really cool. I don't think I'd ever buy one myself, but they definitely look dope.
And then I can't.
He's just gonna go.
How do you? No, almost. Anyway, so there it is in comparison with the mini speeder. But yeah, it's super cool. I should be able to probably finish it the next time. It's not super complicated, although I do have the different weapon options to build and then to be able to swap out the parts. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, I got to imagine that anything dealing with HeroClix has a billion things to it, because there are a lot of HeroClix.
Yeah.
If you're following Gail Simone, she just recently got. I think she's done some HeroClix stuff before, but she got back into HeroClix. WizKids sent her a whole bunch of stuff, so she was doing unboxings. It was like, yeah,
nice.
Back in it, which is cool. Get some more eyes on that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. When was the last time you played any HeroClix?
That one big game we played at your house.
Okay. Right.
Where you complained that I was playing a meta team of KC Shazam and KC Spectre. And then I ended up playing Captain Atom, Shazam, and Amazo, I think, from that Justice League set.
Justice League Unlimited. Yeah. That was good.
And then you brought friggin' what's it called? Starro yelling at me about the teams.
Starro was purely a support piece in that game. I mean, yes, granting Indomitable to all of my my Starro minions, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen all of, well, I know we've talked a little bit about some of the new rules, but yeah, it's like a totally different game.
I've looked at some stuff, and I actually never even had a full grasp on when they changed the rules of the game last time. Sure. So I think actually if I were to ever really want to play again, this would be a great jumping on point for me, because most of the changes that they've made to the way that rules are done, with the exception of like telekinesis, is things that aren't so different that it's confusing. And it's more like, oh, hey, RCEs always on, and it's just +1/+1. You know, Perplex can do everything but damage, which most special uses of Perplex, that was what they did anyway, right?
Right, yeah, exactly.
So I think moving the game to a less lethal stage seems a little out of place, kind of, for the game that it is. Because all the dials are super short anyway nowadays. They're only like 5 or 6 long regardless. And you want to make it so that people are having fun and they can get an opportunity to use their stuff. But the ability to be able to say, hey, Superman's going to run up on you with this thing and this much damage, he should be able to delete something in a single shot, because he's Superman. We're not talking about Spider-Man going up against Superman and knocking him out in one shot, which wouldn't necessarily make as much sense depending on circumstances. But, you know, the big guys need to be able to big guy, and if they don't allow that to happen, then I think a lot of what makes HeroClix is kind of gone. But at the same time, somebody wanted these rules changes to happen. That's why they're doing it in the first place. So it's filling some need.
Well, I mean, in the recent meta, any Superman figure you'd play would only be 75 points anyway, and would be like a mini version of Superman. So yeah, it's the long gone are the days of huge tentpole figures,
which is both good and bad.
Yeah, Squirrel. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, HeroClix. There's so many figures, so many variations. Yeah, you could easily do just like a random pull. There, in fact, at our local comic book store, they have a lot of HeroClix that's just sitting around. Things that have been donated a lot by the two people you're looking at right now. Yep. And so they just did a thing. They have a gigantic table, and it's just a sea of HeroClix, and then they have brown paper bags, and it says fill up a bag for $10, and you whatever you want on that table. So we may take the kids over there to do that at some points.
There you go.
But yeah, and it's interesting to see games go through like these big evolutions. I mean, Warhammer, we've seen different editions, and sometimes they've been more of a drastic change to the rules than other times. Obviously, going from 8th to 9th is more like an 8.5. Yeah. And then while WizKids is talking about this new version of HeroClix, is like, yeah, we're just making a couple little changes, and then it's like we're redoing the game from the ground up. It's like, whoa, okay, that's a little bit more. You could definitely call this a new number in the system.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sorry,
it's
I don't mean to keep yawning.
It's all good. No, that's all right. It's Saturday.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not that I'm bored. I'm just really tired.
Sure. I know that feeling. So tell us a little bit about what you do and where to find you on the internet.
I am many places on the internet, and I do many things. Primarily, what I do, especially starting Monday, where I get a bigger batch of stuff going, is I play video games on the internet. I play a lot of what I've been playing recently is Path of Exile, because I feel like I'm finally actually getting to a point where I can get deeper into that game than I've been before. Every time I play a new league for that game, I get further and further along and learn more and more and figure out what's better and better. So that's helpful. Path of Exile is great. Monday nights I do console gaming. A bunch of friends of mine pitched in together on my last day to buy me Hitman 3, which I'm going to try one more time. I'm notoriously bad at stealth games, and I do appreciate the love that they gave me. They're my boys, but I am so bad at that game. But I'll play Marvel's Avengers because I bought that for PlayStation 4 so I can play Spider-Man whenever the hell that happens. And I've got other games. I play Call of Duty on there. I actually might end up going through a backlog of some of my old PlayStation 4 games that I've never played, because I have Far Cry 5, I have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I have something else I bought that I never played, that I bought at a Black Friday sale 2-3 years ago when I first started working, right? But other than that, it's just random gaming stuff throughout the week. I do... I'll be doing Monday through Friday 11 a.m. streams for Pacific Standard Time to me just playing games. Sometimes, like this last week on Tuesday, I played a new game that I got on Epic Games Store called For the King. It's a roguelike strategy RPG style game, which is very difficult. But it's fun.
Was that the one I saw that it looks like a board game?
Yes, and then that's exactly what it was.
And where you shot that guy and his bones fell out?
Yeah, that was funny too. And I had one incident where my archer goes and shot a zombie right in the eye, and it did 1 point of damage. But the time that it shot him in like the chest or something, it did like 14 or 15 points of damage. But when you kill somebody, they're just bones scatter all over the place, right? It's a fun, cutesy little game. I could definitely see why they gave people the opportunity to pick it up for free on Epic Games Store. But there's so much more involved with it that I haven't even really taken a look at. So at another point in time, I'm going to take a look at that. I'll play Star Trek Online every once in a while. I just reinstalled City of Heroes on my computer, the private server stuff, so I'll be getting into that. I'm much like we've seen here, I'm going to be doing some modeling. I have figure opening that I need to do.
Cool.
On stream. I have been getting into opening Dragon Ball Super card game stuff on stream. I bought more boxes of that game in the last month and a half than I have any game ever in that period of time, which is very interesting. So
that's your new thing. That's your new thing, apparently.
Yeah. There's a lot of different things once we get back to actually having people around, I'm going to be going and playing with other people elsewhere. But there are websites that you can play online, which I should probably practice a little bit before I go make a dum-dum out of myself in real life. But primarily everything I do is going to be on Twitch TV, right where you're seeing us here, twitch.tv/RybackStun. It's in my username. It's right there. Yeah, I get confused with the camera angles. But it's something that I tried doing a while ago, and then when I moved into the place I moved in now, I had to get an actual job. But we're in a specific position where we're both comfortable enough with what we're doing that we think we can actually make a living out of doing both of the things that we're doing. So the other thing you might see on my stream is art from my wife, who is a very talented artist. She does my emotes, so I'll throw 2 of those in chat right now so you can see what she's worked on so far. Obviously, these are just my face, but there are other things that are coming through that she'll be doing. That's new emotes that I've gotten as I've been a bigger thing.
She made my super baby. That looks so cool.
She did the super baby. There's a couple of designs for soaps that she's done for you guys. She's been working on independent projects and doing different things, so I want to give her more of a platform to do that so that she can showcase.
That's super cool. Yeah.
Art.
Is she gonna like do art on stream?
I think possibly? If she gets to that point, she'll do that on her own Twitch account, which is good. Just because it's. I mean, I wouldn't mind her doing it on mine, but at the same time, it's one of those things that it probably is better if we're known independently for things with our own names.
That makes sense.
And if she ever gets stupidly popular, then I can abandon my dreams and hopes and just mooch off her.
Sure, that works.
Yeah, but cool. I game. I do a lot of gaming, and it's something I've had a passion for a long time, and now I'm really actively trying to make sure things are going to work in such a way that I can just do that until I need to retire. So
nice. Is there a game that is coming out soon that you're really looking forward to?
Gosh, I feel like they're supposed to be, but I can't. It's interesting because I focus very much on the things that I know that I can play for a long time, and taking a risk on a new game is hard because there's a lot of other people that are doing the same thing. So
the whole bandwagon,
exactly. Jumping into something new is always a little terrifying because you don't know what your results are going to be with that. In terms of new games, I can't think of anything that's supposed to be coming out anytime soon that I would be like, There's expansions for things that I play now that I'm looking forward to as they come out. But I just it's weird. If you ask the question, I'm like, I know there should be an answer to this, but I don't actually know what's coming out outside of the things that I actually just like play. You know what I'm saying?
It's all fine. Yeah, I was just wondering because and oh my god, and there are always more Warhammer games coming out. Whether it's for mostly on the computer or there are a million mobile games too. Like way too much stuff.
Baldur's Gate 3 is actually one that I'm very excited to get my hands on because it's played in the D&D 5th edition system. So they did their beta for it last year, and I want them to have the game finished, and then I'll go ham in that and play that a lot. So.
Oh, thank you, Zardos. For some reason, I don't know why it's on my list, but I haven't mentioned it. But I have behind the scenes mentioned it to our guest. So we are doing, as you know, we're doing our own private, as a community, armies on display, not armies on parade. Legally distinct and unique.
I like it.
But I have told you about it, and you did seem interested rather. So we're unveiling things as we go forward. But yes, for anybody who has not heard of it yet, we are embarking on a project by which all you people at home, can join us, and we're going to create display boards, essentially like diorama kind of things for our armies. And this can be everything from, if you're like a veteran like me and you've got a million models that you're going to finally get around to paint and put together on a thing, or if you are brand new to a game, it doesn't have to be 40K or even Age of Sigmar. If you want to do some other game, we can work it out. So if you are just starting out, we'll help you find a faction that you like, find the models that you like, We have advice on how to build stuff, how to paint stuff, how to make the scenery, the decor, and make an actual display for your army that's going to be really, really cool. What are you thinking of doing if you do are part of the... Okay. Yes, and I'm finally going to get my Space Marines up and running, especially highlighting the 2 models so far that we're doing that you guys helped me build in my community, but they will be pink. Let's see if we can get... that's why I've been working on my pinks lately. And yeah, that'll be... My Space Marine army will finally be painted and put together. Some Marines will be painted. Yes.
I like it.
I have a lot of them, so...
So one GW game that I've always loved, that I've been involved with it when it first came out in 2001, that I've never played enough of it, is the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, Middle Earth strategy battle game, also sometimes known as War of the Ring, depending on it. I actually have the War of the Ring book down here somewhere. I've always been a big fan of Rohan. It's my favorite faction in Lord of the Rings. I have models and models and models of them, horses, non-horses, all that other kinds of stuff. I'm not doing Rohan. I am doing Osgiliath, which is different than... It's technically still part of the Minas Tirith army, but the reason why I did is because of this guy right here, Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, with the banner. Last year, I did their made-to-order thing, where I was able to get all 3 of the models that they provide.
Nice.
So my goal is to make an Osgiliath army that represents where they were at in the extended edition version of Two Towers in that middle scene that's right there, which to me is the most important scene, I think, in almost all of the Lord of the Rings actual like movie stuff, because it gives you the motivations of the three different characters in there: Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor. It's one of my favorite scenes. Two Towers is my favorite movie of the 6. If you even want to reference the newer stuff.
Sure.
But that Captain of the White Tower moment is amazing. Like, obviously Pelennor Fields and Helm's Deep and all the different things, the big character pieces of all the army, 6,000 horses, as Zardos stated there, you know, marching along against the orcs. Great scenes. But like in terms of individual character development, nothing beats Osgiliath in the extended version of Two Towers. So my goal is I already built these guys and primed them. Paint the 2 important ones, which are the ones that are holding banners, and then some Minas Tirith troops, maybe a couple Osgiliath veterans, the Rangers, and then Faramir himself to make a little like display. My idea of the display board is going to be them defending Osgiliath.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, and see like we've got here, you can do something really unique and like a really specific scene from something, and yeah, that's super cool. And thank you, Peg Junk, for the 9-month subscription. It's a baby. It's 9 months.
Jeez.
I get that from Hector. Hector would always measure subscription lengths by how many babies, or how much of a baby would produce. That's awesome. Yeah, I have some ideas for what I'm possibly going to do with my actual like base itself, but I haven't fully fleshed that out yet. Yeah, Denethor has a particular look in the regular cut. There was just, I don't know if people saw it, if you follow Lord of the Rings stuff on Twitter, but and there's a lot of Lord of the Rings content on Twitter, but some person not super famous, but said, I was remembering the time that I was in Lord of the Rings, and it was actually, I think it was an Osgiliath scene, and he just played background, but he's right behind Faramir in the shot, and then like he just had some shots, and people were commenting, "Oh, that's so awesome! You were in that movie." And he responded to one of them. He's like, "Well, if you were over 6 feet tall when they were filming those movies in New Zealand, you had to be in the movies." I think they just went around and just recruited everyone. They're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool." Okay, so that's the Armies on Parade. The other thing that I did want to mention while I have people here captive to watch is that our book club. So this is on Jessica's Discord, so not the Homebuddy's Discord. Most things happen there. Armies on display, yes. But the Jessica's Discord, we are having a book club. It is my book club. There's even a separate room for it. And we are reading Creatures of Darkness by Roger Zelazny. We are going to be talking about this not not next week, but the week after. So depending on how you look at it. So the last week in February, the exact date to be announced, and it's about the first 50 pages, so not that much. You still have time to get it and read it and discuss it with us. It'll be really fun. Dark Horse Shadow. That's the up to where we're going to talk about. Oh, it's right there, page 57. Super cool. Tonight is the Home Buddies group stream. We will, I believe, I don't have 100% confirmation, but I'm pretty sure we'll be on Janelle's channel doing something really fun. So tune in for that. 7 p.m. Pacific. Be in the Discord. Keep your eye out on the social media for further details. It arrived literally just before the stream started. I am so excited. My Lady Gaga Oreos are here. Thanks, Mom. My mom had them sent to me. I'll spare you eating them on stream, but I will open them to show you what they look like.
Those were interesting to deal with.
But as soon as we're done, I'm going to try these.
There we go.
And my color isn't. Oh, actually.
Are they supposed to be orange?
They're supposed to be pink.
Oh yeah, those are definitely orange.
Yeah, the color doesn't quite pick them up right.
Do they taste like Lady Gaga?
I think they're just the vanilla Oreos, just with different colors. But yeah, I'm excited. Like I've said before, my family, whenever there's a new Oreo flavor or variety that comes out, we always try it. So
I have been on the unfortunate end of that a couple times, and it's not been pleasant.
Yeah, often when we try them and then we don't like them, we'll bring them to a hobby night or an event and say, "Okay, everybody, here are a bunch of Oreos."
For all the bad, I still to this day am super happy that you brought the cookie butter ones because those were amazing.
Yeah, they're for every 3 that are not so good, there's one that's really good. I think that's about the ratio of.
I think you're being a little generous there, but okay.
Well, cool. Is there anything else that you have or want to talk about? Oh yeah, the carrot cake ones were good. That's right. Forgot about those.
Not a big fan of carrot cake. They weren't terrible. They weren't as bad as like the toothpaste one or whatever it was. But yeah, no, nothing on my end. I just thanks for having me on. I appreciate the ability to talk about my terrible painting skills and.
Oh, it's not terrible. Squirrel, I 100% agree with you. I do not understand people who like black licorice. It's vile. Vile.
Fun fact. Black licorice alcohol is the only thing I can smell.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. I didn't even know until it actually came up upon me. There was a can that had a type of black licorice alcohol in it, and I opened the can just to see what was in there, and I was blasted by the smell of it. Other than that, I can't smell anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. There's a fun fact for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Red licorice all day long, day and night. Red vines forever, but black licorice, not.
At least you said the right one, because red vines are way better than Twizzlers.
Oh yeah, Twizzlers are not licorice. Twizzlers are garbage. we all know this. Cool. So yeah, I think that's gonna be about. I'm gonna see if there's anybody cool to raid. Are you streaming today?
No, I have. I gotta go eat, and then in about 3 hours, I play D&D. So hopefully,
nice.
As long as nobody forgets, which I should probably be like, "Hey, are we doing this?"
That does sometimes happen when you are gonna play D&D, and people sometimes forget. What is your character?
I actually technically have 2 of them. I have. So the first character I played was a human monk. That was Way of the... What is it called? Way of the Sun? I forget. Sun Soul. That's what it's called. Okay. So I'm basically a Dragon Ball Z character that shoots out ki blasts. But currently I play what's known as a Wingly Paladin Sorcerer. And Wingly is basically just another term for Ancient Elf. It's from the Legend of the Dragoon series. But... it's a fun character. I think I've only been in like 2 combats with it, even though I've played that character for like 2 months now. But the idea is that it goes in, and as a paladin, you bash people and you have support spells. But the sorcerer backup allows me to do some extra range things that a paladin normally can't. And once I get into higher levels of sorcerer, I'm able to expend slots of the sorcerer spell slots to empower divine smite, which gives extra damage. And I did actually get to do a big strike of divine smite damage on a creature I was fighting because I used a spell for thunderous smite, and then I crit. And because crits in D&D double, and then, you double all the dice, or you roll twice the amount of dice. The thunderous smite damage doubled. I had divine smite, which also doubled, and then the die damage for the weapon doubled. I ended up doing like 98 points of damage or something like that in one big strike, and that was great.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So, Twizzlers are the worst. Okay, look, I know some people like Twizzlers, and that's fine. I very much dislike Twizzlers. They're just not real. Like, what are they supposed to be? I know they're supposed to be red licorice, but they taste like fruit and no,
it tastes like fruit punch.
It's
weird.
No, it's not. There are things like when you go trick or treating and you get the little packs of Twizzlers, like trash. Just throw it right out. It's not even worth eating compared to other things.
Oh man, Twizzler fans are like Ultramarine fans. That's funny.
I can't necessarily argue with that. On a D&D side tangent. So Benjamin has started. There are a couple of online games for little kids that are. Some of them are good, some of them are just garbage. But they try to involve some sort of learning or practicing reading or something. So there's one that he's playing that has math, and Benjamin is really good at math, so he's excelling at this online game, and it's a role playing game. So, and he started to like understand what was going on about swapping out your familiars and your equipment and what type of damage you need to do against what type of enemies. So it's like, well, hey, if he's getting this stuff, I'm gonna show him Dungeons and Dragons. So I took out the player's handbook and like we went through every single page, and he was like really interested in the art. So I think I'm gonna start doing some little mini D&D sessions for him, which I'm really excited about. It should be cool.
Cool. That sounds like fun.
Get him going on it early. Okay.
Benjamin Min-Max Rubin.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I'm going to put in the command here in just a second. We're going to raid Red Katana, who we've seen before. And yeah, so thanks to everybody for hanging out and checking out my good friend, our awesome guest RybackStun, all of his cool a long history with Warhammer and with painting and some very cool things. Don't be down on your painting. You Rabid Wombat, you're all very good painters. You all have your different styles. You find what works for you, and that is great. That's all any of us can hope for. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again. So yeah, follow RybackStun. Check out all of his video game stuff and other things. We are putting in. Oh, no one's a terrible painter. No, I've seen you, Couch. I've seen your stuff too. You're not a terrible painter.
You can't say there are not terrible painters, because there are terrible painters. And I'm not even saying that as like a self-reflection. Okay. There are people who are just bad at painting.
That may be, but none of you are terrible painters. I've seen examples of all of your painting, and none of you are terrible painters. Yes, so tonight, Homemade Group stream, Janelle Santa Cruz, channel 7 p.m. Pacific. And then otherwise, I'll see everybody on Monday for more mythology, more reading wacky, bizarre Russian fairy tales.
Ooh.
They're super weird.
As most Russian things are.
Exactly. All right, and otherwise, if you can't make it to any of those other streams, then have a really great weekend. Relax. Try not to watch the news, because today was another example of how the United States is crap. But what are you gonna do? All right, everybody. Say hi to Red Katana, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, raid is going. End broadcast here, and broadcast.